All right. Super exciting for this one.
I know, I'm excited.
Brennan here, the Gut Whisperer in Costa Rica at the Divina Vida Farm with Lisa, the owner of this beautiful... Caretaker? You call it the caretaker?
Yeah,
okay.
Nobody owns this land.
Get ready for an action-packed interview because I think there's going to be a lot of valuable lessons in this dialogue. We're just going to go right into it. I am super happy to be here. I just want to give the audience a little bit of a background history of how we met because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And then I'll just let you run with it.
Cool.
So my last visit in Costa Rica, I was here June and July. I spent almost 2 months here in Costa Rica by myself on my own sort of retreat, if you will. And I really got to fall in love with the climate and the community and the lifestyle. And then when I came back, I recently graduated with my somatic breathwork certification. I've been doing breathwork and plant medicine ceremonies, and I wanted ceremonial cacao. But I didn't want to just find cacao online because there's a whole bunch out there.
Yes,
right?
There is.
So what I did is I asked Jenny. Jenny is the wife of Lars. They own Roma del Mar, which is in the Gulf of Nicoya. Mm-hmm. I said, Jenny, I'm looking for some ceremonial cacao. Do you have any? Or do you know where I can get some? And she's like, I don't, but I'll put you in a group chat and I'll introduce us to some people. Great. So she started introducing me to some people, and then I looked at a couple of websites, and there's even some other people from different countries. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah. And then I don't know how or who passed me on to you in the group chat, and then I found you.
Awesome.
And then so I guess I messaged you,
right?
And then you put me onto the website, mm-hmm. and I ordered, I think, 2 kilograms,
mm-hmm. right.
2 kilos of ceremonial cacao.
Right.
And I was very thankful, and I got to consume my own ceremonial cacao, and I knew how powerful and special it was, right. But I also had no idea until here. And I offer it to some of my clients in ceremony, which is really, really powerful. Mm-hmm. But that still, it didn't complete, I guess, the void that I had. Right. And so kind of fast forward, you decided to ask me a question if I wanted to kind of come here. Right. So why don't you, so that's my side of the story on how you and I met.
Right.
Why don't you share sort of your version, and then that kind of brings us up to speed on where we're at, and also who you are. Why don't we discuss that as well?
Okay. So let's continue on that theme.
Sure.
So this was all coming together at the same time as Matt and I were in conversation about, would you consider me reaching out to some of the people that I know that could come into the Living Light construct and become a team of instructors? And we had already pulled together, I don't know, maybe 3 different people that were solidly yes, and we didn't really have a plan. This whole thing really organically grew. And I had, once you ordered the cacao from me, of course, I went on your Instagram. I'm like, follow and follow again. And so I'm like, and I was following up with you because your order going to Canada, it's not as, it wasn't down the street.
Sure.
So I needed to make sure that it arrived and that it arrived in good condition.
Yeah, it was actually stuck at customs for a lot longer than we both expected.
Right, exactly. So, and that can happen, and other times it goes straight through. We never really know. Mm-hmm. And so in that, I was like, Matt, there is this amazing young man that's doing gut biome, and I think it needs to be part of our curriculum. Are you open? And he said, yeah, let's talk. And so that dialogue between the 3 of us was like, as I said, the thing that turned me on was the fact that when I said, would you consider being part of this co-creation of instructors coming together to create a new way of learning for the new earth? And you said, I'm in. I want to be on a team, right? Because we are individuals out here with our expertise. Mm-hmm. But my feeling is this new earth is calling us to be together, co-create, bring each other to a new level of excellence. And man, you didn't hesitate. You didn't even take a deep breath. It
Right.
was like, yes, I want to be part of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, you want to come to Costa Rica? And he's like, I'd love to come back, right?
Yeah.
So that willingness that you showed is just so lovely to
Thank
see.
you. So let's talk about you then, in terms of, you said we're a whole bunch of individuals in a way, try to create this commonality and common pool of creation, co-creation.
Right.
But what about you? You've got quite the background and the
Right.
history and the story. So why don't you share with the viewership and the listenership sort of who you are,
Right.
where you came from,
Sure.
and sort of where you're at right now?
Yeah, so my name's Lisa Morris, and as far back as I can remember, I love to play in the dirt. I love to be barefoot, preferably naked, and playing in the dirt. So, of course, life took me to Calistoga in the mud baths and a vineyard and being in the dirt and learning, all of that, soils, planting, pruning, harvesting, all of that. And I'm a self-taught herbalist, and so my journey went into herbs and then into flower essences as I started to get more in tune with energy, and not so much the herb, but the energy of the flower and the fruit that it produced. And then that took me even further into energetic healing with the body talk modality, which I studied, well, I guess it's been 25 years ago, and became a practitioner, and then shortly thereafter became an instructor. And just over the years, but I've kind of always had a foot in both worlds, the practical dirt, compost, soil biome, all of that, and the higher vibration, energetic body, and how those two dance together. And so at some point in time, it was time to sell the vineyard, and I always knew I was going to come to Costa Rica. I never came here on vacation. I really didn't know that much about the country, but I had a friend 28 years ago who had come down here and was doing all kinds of stuff, and he had an opportunity to study with the indigenous down in the Golfito area. And I'm like, I want to go there. I want to go down there. I want to learn that. I want to learn from the indigenous. I can't wait. And it was plant medicine, but not the trendy plant medicine of today. It wasn't ayahuasca or any of that.
Right.
It was herbs. It
Okay.
was what leaves do what, right? And
Yeah.
what fruit does what, and what root does what. And they were teaching him. And I'm like, I want to know that, because at that time I was studying it and teaching myself. But that at that time, 28 years ago, the country was completely different. There wasn't a road from San Jose to Golfito. There wasn't a road out. There wasn't a highway until about 12, 15 years ago. And the Tarcoles Bridge, which you came across, where the crocodiles are, was a ferry boat, a flat ferry. You just went on the ferry and drove across and prayed to God that the crocodiles didn't
really?
come up on. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't, the infrastructure wasn't here in the country.
Right.
Which I didn't know, but my baby daddies both said, oh no, that's too far to go for vacation. It's difficult to get around. No, it's not. But I always knew in the back of my mind, I'm going to Costa Rica. I just know I'm going to Costa Rica. So I put my youngest in Sonoma State University in August, and I lived here full time by December.
So when was it when you sold the vineyard to moving to Costa Rica?
I sold the vineyard when my youngest was going into high school, so I had 4 years.
Was it like a big vineyard? Was it a success?
No, it was a little 7-acre vineyard.
Okay.
I'd been in the wine industry with my husband for 20-some years,
Okay.
30-some years in
Right.
it, totally between marketing wine and making wine and then growing grapes. So all of that was a 36-year journey. And the irony is a lot of the equipment that we use in cacao is very similar to the wine process, right? And you can't make a really beautiful bottle of wine if you've got crappy soil,
Right.
or depleted soil.
Mm-hmm.
And same here. You're not going to make a lovely cacao if you're not feeding those cacao trees, right? And then you take that into fermentation science. Now, we were right next to UC Davis, so it really became, you know, fermentation science as a science.
Sure.
Here, it's old world, right? Fermentation means taking the cacao beans and hanging them from a tree and let the placenta honey drip out, right? That's the fermentation, and the drying is out on the ground
Now,
on a tarp.
There's new way,
Yep,
and there's old way of fermenting wine.
right.
I'm sure there's new ways
Yes.
and old ways of fermenting cacao.
Yes.
I want you to go into that, but I want to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Because I just thought about it right now.
Yeah.
There is a common active ingredient that is found in wine
Yes.
that I believe is also found in chocolate,
Right.
resveratrol.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that really quick?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many healing properties of both of them. I know more actually about the healing properties of cacao because of, as a healthcare practitioner now I understand more, as opposed to let's have a really yummy glass of Cabernet with our, Napa Valley 5-star dinner.
Right.
Where here I really understand the medicine a whole lot more, and that a cacao bean provides a small amount of copper, which our body needs, and it's one of the only food sources that give us copper, and magnesium and manganese, and there's just so many things.
Right.
And then if you look at the spiritual aspect of it, we're also being fed heart energy, right? So as I say in the cacao ceremony, eating a cacao bean is going to open the cardiovascular system. It's going to get a whole lot more oxygen into your brain. It can go to that bliss center in the brain and act as a stimulant to DMT if that so wants to go that path.
Right.
It doesn't mean everybody's going to have that. But you can certainly go into a deep meditation with the cacao and get to that same place that some of this plant medicine is taking you. But it's more heart-centered. It's about opening your heart. And, I always say that Mama Cacao can see the blockages that we don't see. And she gently, like Pele, moves them.
Well, it requires an awareness and some direction from a facilitator or for someone that's educated that knows that to then pass it on. I feel that to pass it on to someone because I knew that there was properties to cacao,
Right.
but I didn't know the extent of it. So
Right.
before we get into that, I want to go a little bit more for you moving from the States,
Yes.
moving to Costa Rica. How long have you been living here in Costa Rica for now?
I've been here. I'm on my 11th year.
And so what was that like? And what did you start doing in terms of...
Well, I bought this piece of land as a retreat center, thinking that I would live in one of the smaller homes and have this be a retreat center. But when I got here, it was like, okay, it's kind of like going to the Napa Valley and wanting to be a winery. It's like, oh my God, there's so many wineries, right? How do I compete?
Right.
And when I got here, I don't have an ocean view. And I thought right away, that's going to be an issue. A lot of the people are coming want to be near the ocean. And I didn't at the time have a yoga deck. And that was a lot of the market was to have people come for yoga retreat. But my intention when I left the United States was to have a classroom for my Body Talk students. Body Talk is a very comprehensive modality that we learn in 4 days. And I always felt rushed as an instructor.
Oh.
And then people would go home, live, have dinner and be with their family, and they'd come back and there would be at least an hour of trying to recapture that energetic field to go deep into learning again. And it was my prayer and my vision to be able to have a container to maybe go 5 to 7 days, share our meals together, practice one-on-one, and integrate more on a visceral level what we had learned in the lecture that day. And so I wasn't really marketing to yogis and things like that. But also at the time, my road from the Constanera to here was all old dirt, gravel, deep pothole road. I had 13 flat tires in a year.
And that just that's if you're familiar with Costa Rica, you know that some of the roads are wonderful.
Yeah.
And some of the roads are
really bad.
My God.
Yeah.
And what actually one of my guests on my podcast is Nick. His name is Nick. And he's one of the founders of Unbounded, which is also an experience company, but his is cold. He's the guy that brings people to the cold. But he says bad roads or maybe I'm sure it's not his saying, but first time I heard it from him, he said, "Bad roads bring good people."
That's my whole thing too. I'm going to steal that because I always say.
Have you never heard that before?
No.
Oh.
But I always say, if you can find your way here and get up my road, you're meant to be here and you're blessed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because not too many people want to travel, and it's only a half a kilometer of really bad road.
But a really horrible road is often a make or break for a lot of travelers.
Right.
And you know what? Good.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, you can see it.
Yeah.
And it's happening right now to Costa Rica.
Right.
It is getting developed.
Yes.
And there are more and more people coming here. Like, I am a product of the problem.
Right.
Because we're coming.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not a huge population,
Right.
but there's a lot of people coming.
Right.
But the less Costa Rica invests in their roads,
Right.
it'll still continue to just
Exactly.
keep the numbers from really, really coming.
Well, and I find that there are two different groups of people that are coming here. There are those that are coming here for the lifestyle and the heart-centeredness of Pura Vida,
Right.
and giving to that consciousness. And then there are the developers. And the developers, rightfully so, are getting a lot of flack and pushback from the local citizens,
Yep.
but also those of us who have come with the heart-centered. This is something to be preserved. This is something to, this is sacred. You can't come in here and clear cut half a mountain to put up 17 homes.
Right.
And
if
so
it was up to the developers, a lot of them would.
they're trying.
They're doing, yeah.
They're trying because they see a gold mine here.
Right,
Right.
right.
So when I first moved here, I got a lot of flack at first from my kids, right? Single woman,
Right.
Early 50s, don't speak the language,
Sure.
move into the middle of nowhere, right? And they were very, very concerned. And then they came and they met Flory, my farm manager, and they're like, "Oh, you're fine, Mom. we'll leave you there."
Right.
Right? But I still get a lot of people like, "You must be somewhat crazy to just pack up from your life, leave your children, who were both in college and off in their jobs. They didn't need me anymore.
Yeah.
To follow a dream that I set out 28 years ago to do."
You gave yourself permission
Yes.
to pursue a dream,
Yes.
a wild and lavish dream.
Yes.
You left your kids back home.
Yeah.
You must have done a good enough job
Yes.
to make them become independent
Yes.
so that you could fulfill and pursue your dreams.
Yeah. See, my mom knew. My mom was there when my oldest was born. And she said to me, "You have to start right now preparing your daughter to take care of herself."
Your grandmother said this to your mom, you said?
My
No.
mother said it to me.
Okay.
While I'm pushing out my oldest daughter.
Okay, so
as soon as she got out of me, she
Yep.
said it starts right now. You prepare yourself and her to be independent, strong, and self-sufficient in the world. And I did. Had I chosen, if something had happened to me by the time my oldest daughter was 12, she could do her own laundry, she could do a budget, she could go grocery shopping, she could do all of those things.
Say that a little bit slower for the family moms and the dads
Yeah.
that are listening and watching, because there's some serious lessons to be learned and applied. So
Yes.
say that again.
Well, just making our children as self-sufficient to fly as we possibly can is the interpretation of what I walked away with my mom. So it's empowering your children, not taking care of your children. And so I empowered them to take care of themselves. So when it came time to leave them and leave the country, all that was left was the emotional piece, because they had all of the mechanics in place to take care of themselves. They were taking care of themselves.
Right.
Right? And so it was just the emotional, "Oh my God, you're so far away." Right? And 3 weeks into my living here, they came. Their worries were eased, and they love coming here. When my youngest was in college, they could come often, but now they come at least once a year, and we usually meet somewhere once
Sure.
a year. And I have never been, I think the term is like a helicopter mother.
Right.
Or a helicopter mom.
Yep.
I always encouraged them to push themselves to the limit, and I would be there if they fell.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do a whole lot for them.
Right.
Right? And it was actually my ex-husband who, with my oldest daughter, who wouldn't stop crying for months and months, he said, she gave you her all for 18 and a half years. You got to give her permission.
Yeah.
And my daughter came to me and said, you can go, Mom.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It was Jordan Peterson. I don't remember where I heard it or how exactly he said it. But if you want to strengthen your children, you kind of give them hard times and you let them figure things out.
Right.
Rather
it's their
than
failure.
Yeah, don't protect them.
Right. And don't do the work for them.
Yeah.
We were involved in a community of helicopter moms who were very competitive, and they wanted their children to shine. So they would build the forts and they would do the science experiments and take them in. And it had nothing to do with the kids.
Yeah.
The message I saw was telling the kids they didn't believe in their kids could do a good job. Let me do it for you. Right? And
so what's the messaging behind that then? What's the psyche behind that?
Well, for me, I see a lot of kids that don't have very much self-esteem and personal pride. Right?
Because their parents are just doing it all.
They do it all, right? And they don't have to do anything, and they can become very lazy.
Right.
And then they lose their creativity, right? I know that if my girls are presented with a problem, they'll figure it out. And that's a hard one to swallow too, when they don't call you to help figure it out. They figure it out on their own.
Because you've done such a good job.
Exactly. They don't need me. But I'm so proud of them, right? Because they know how to solve every problem.
Right. That's a double-edged sword then a little bit.
Yeah,
you want them because
Right.
you identify as mom.
Right.
So and that gives you purpose.
Right.
But you did such a good job.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So they come and visit you periodically, and that's amazing. But let's go back to you starting life on the farm here.
Here in Costa Rica.
Yeah, because you had a cute little winery.
Right, little vineyard.
And then you're here in Costa Rica. So what did you do?
Right. Well, I had a bridge year of elder care. A friend of mine's mother needed some elder care. So I was in San Francisco for a year. And then the time came for being here. And I was so ready and so ripe. But I really, again, I thought this was going to be, what I was coming here for was a retreat center. And one other property fell through that was going to be the retreat center. And then I was brought to this as an alternative before flying home, defeated maybe I'm not going to go to Costa Rica. And as soon as I got to the gate, I was like, yeah, this is it. You don't even have to show me anything else. And when I got here, it was a little bit of deflation in that I couldn't see how my dream was going to come true with a bad road and lacking the tools that I thought a retreat center needed.
Right.
And I had 2 Rottweiler puppies, and so I was training them. I didn't have any furniture. And I was just reminded, Lisa, your goal 28 years ago was to come do the herbs, get busy doing the herbs. And so I was thinking about, I had just been to Austin, Texas, to this little tea house, and this woman had about the same size as this living room, a little tea shop with teas from all over the world.
Okay.
And I thought, well, should Costa Rica follow in the footsteps of the United States and start to, control the nutraceuticals, I'm just going to put it in the culinary. I'll make a tea. And yes, they're medicinal. Yes, they have healing properties. But first and foremost, they're a culinary tea. So they taste good. And there's medicinal properties.
Right.
Yeah. And so, and the alchemy of blending 3 different things from here on the property was very, very important for me. And every one of our tea bags has a little quartz crystal in it, making it a gem elixir, which then amplifies the herbal medicine. And I went, okay, this is me. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go sell at the farmers markets, and we're going to have a great old time. And we did until COVID hit. I mean, we were supporting the entire farm and 4 full-time employees and 2 horses.
Just on tea?
Tea and chocolate.
Okay.
At this point, I didn't really know. But at this point, I didn't really know that I had chocolate.
Right.
And so it was just the teas and at the farmers markets, and then the tourists stopped coming, right? You Canadians stayed home and couldn't come to the country.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah.
Jerk.
Yeah,
Dick.
Yeah. So, and really
I can totally say that because I want it.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's always positives to every negative.
Okay. Well, the positive for me was I came to the reality of how much work it was to get to the farmer's market.
Okay.
Set up.
Yep.
You know, somebody younger than me, it's a great way to socialize,
Sure.
get to know people in the country,
Yeah.
Sell your product. Yeah, it's a platform that was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it was like, God, this is a lot of work. Packing it up, setting it up.
How many markets did you do?
We did 3 at one time, and then Flory went to Jaco and I went to Domenico. And then we just, with COVID, stopped doing all of them. Now they've come back, right? The Agricoltura Feria is open, and the private one in Domenical is back open. But we haven't gone back.
You don't need to go back.
I don't think we need to
Right.
go back. Yeah. And so, again, I didn't even know I had chocolate here. And when I found out there was chocolate, my thought process was, great, another carrier for the herbs. So we were making the teas, we were putting it in natural honey, and now it was like, oh, we can put it in chocolate? Great. So our chocolate bars mimic the blends of the teas.
Right.
And that was the line, right? And then I invited a shaman to come and teach me cacao ceremony. And my intention in that first ceremony was to get to know Mama Cacao at a deeper level. Well, then it was like cacao tea and cacao, rum and the cacao face products and healing products and chocolates and all kinds of stuff.
So for those that don't know, chocolate is a derivative of
right.
cacao.
Right. I get that all the time. What's the difference between cacao and chocolate?
Right. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And also, let's talk about the spiritual aspect and even the religious aspect of cacao, because apparently it runs really deep.
Exactly. So the question of what's the difference between cacao and chocolate? So cacao is the tree, the fruit, and the whole bean. Nothing's happened to it, right? It's just a natural tree that grows from the ground, produces a fruit, and that fruit has a bean in it. And then it becomes cocoa when it's broken. So a nib is actually a cocoa bean, right? And then if you grind that further into a powder, it's cocoa powder. And it becomes chocolate when you have an inclusion, whether it be an herbal inclusion, sugar, milk, whatever it might be. Anything added to that paste of cacao or cocoa is chocolate.
So cocoa beans, grind it up.
Cacao beans.
Or cacao beans, grind up into cacao nibs.
Cocoa nibs.
Cocoa nibs.
See, isn't that fun?
Yeah. And then
And then chocolate.
And then chocolate by adding
right.
ingredients.
Any inclusion.
Got it.
Yeah, and we do have all of our chocolate bars are vegan, but anything you add. So we add like our guanabana blend is guanabana, acerola cherries, and hibiscus flower. So that same basic half tea bag goes into a chocolate bar.
And you still get to include your medicinal properties with the flowers.
Right. And then I met Gabrielle, who's here, one of our gourmet instructors, and I met her at a master's program for a chocolate school out of the East Coast. And she taught me a lot about how we really do have fine chocolate here on the farm. I wanted everything to stay as close to indigenous as possible, so we were roasting on the open fire, right outside. We were fermenting the old-fashioned way of dripping.
Why is that important to you? Why do it that way, the slow way and the methodical way, in contrast to the commercial way where you can really pump out some good dollars that way?
Right, because those machines that pump out the good dollars, they don't have any love in them. The people and their hands and their hearts and their songs and their prayers, that's where the heart comes from. And that's an energy you can feel when you taste the chocolate. And that's not to say that chocolate made from a machine isn't good.
Sure.
Right? We've tasted some here this week that is phenomenal, but it's not bean to bar. It's not the same, right?
It's not bean to bar.
Right. It's not going from the fruit of the tree into a chocolate bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's buying chocolate somewhere from a mass producer
Mm-hmm.
that's already been, processed,
Yep.
and bringing the artistry of chocolate making
Right.
to that. We don't do that.
And this is where we have a major commonality. I love to teach in terms of gut health and working with my clients and providing value and giving them a real story, like the back end. And as I like chocolate, right? We all do.
We all do.
But now, by coming here to this farm, learning from you, learning from Florella, learning from Mother Cacao, and experiencing all of this,
Right.
I have so much more of a respect and affinity for cacao and chocolate.
Right.
And prior to this, I'd be like, oh my God, $14 or $15 or $16 or $20 for a chocolate bar.
Artisanal chocolate
Yeah,
bar.
what the heck?
Right.
Who's buying that? Why? Why can't it be $3? Remember when chocolate bars were
25 cents.
Sure, or 25 cents.
Yeah, I can remember that.
Right? For
Right.
me, I think it was 99 cents.
Yeah.
All day long chocolate bars. Now, hydrogenated food oils and
Right.
high fructose corn syrup and all
Right.
that stuff.
Right.
Major difference.
Right.
So let's talk about the difference of, let's just start with high quality chocolate and then let's say milk chocolate Cadbury's.
Right.
And then let's talk about the healing properties of cacao on its own, because they are really,
Right.
they're separate.
Right. So an artisanal chocolate bar is just that. It's usually small batch, sometimes single origin like ours. And it is unique to a region. It's no different than wine,
I was
the
just
Napa
gonna
Valley
say,
wine.
yeah.
$2 Chuck versus Randy Dunn, right?
I don't know what that is. What is that?
Randy Dunn is a Cabernet from the eastern hills of Napa Valley.
Okay.
And he sells for $400 a bottle.
So the wine connoisseurs, they're going to know exactly what you're
Yeah,
talking
and $2 Chuck is a wine that's palatable, but it's $2 Chuck, right? So there's a big difference,
Okay.
and there's an artisanal quality to it. There's a creative quality to it. There's a lot of heart going into what's happening in the vineyard. Again, it's usually single origin. There's not a lot of blending. Many chocolate farms, because they're a dying breed in Mesoamerica, they'll just grow what they have and they'll put it at a co-op. And the co-op concept, there's not consistency there, right? You're not going to have the same thing next year that you had this year. You could have a really good, blend that comes into the co-op one year, and then next year it's really bad. So, and the chocolate that you're used to, that I used to be used to, isn't chocolate.
Right.
It's coming out of Africa. They're using child labor to harvest it. They're using very little chocolate. They don't care what it tastes like, right? They're putting all of the sugars and the oils and
Yeah.
all of those things in to mask the fact that they don't have good chocolate.
To mask the fact that they don't have good chocolate.
Right.
And they don't even have
They don't
enough
care.
chocolate, so they're having to add different ingredients
Right.
to compensate.
Right.
Because they're getting it from
Exactly.
Africa. Nothing against Africa, but they're just
Right.
exploiting everything about it.
Exactly.
Are there sommeliers of chocolate around the world that are like chocolate enthusiasts that can even decipher?
We have one here, Gabrielle.
It's a thing?
She's a sommelier of chocolate. She can tell you what country it's come from, what region it's come from, all of it.
And
Yeah.
she's one of your educators, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Sure.
that's, I just want to understand that one more time. She's like a professional chocolate eater almost, but she's a professional chocolatier.
Right.
But she can just by tasting,
Yes.
she knows where it's
Yes. She's traveled the world. She's just like my ex-husband was a sommelier of wine. She's a sommelier of chocolate. And there's a huge difference. And I encourage your viewers to go buy a few of their favorite 75% or 85%
Okay.
chocolate
Yep,
bars
yep.
and do a blind tasting. And to understand, my first blind tasting, we had Linz, which is a very popular
Sure.
chocolate
Yep,
bar
we know
out
it.
of Europe.
Yep.
And then we had Costa Rican, Peruvian, and I think a chocolate bar from Honduras. And We all thought, well, Lindt is this popular chocolate bar. Everybody's going to love it. We did a blind tasting. We didn't know what it was. And we were taught how to taste, which is don't bite the chocolate.
Okay.
Let it sit on your mouth. Let it coat your tongue. And when it's melted, then you can chew and swallow it. That way you're getting the whole flavor notes all the way around your tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And across the board, there were 12 of us. All of us put Lindt's as last.
Wow.
Yeah. And now all the rest were artisanal bars, equal amounts of sugar or chocolate or cacao.
Right.
And that's the difference. There's a lot of, in the artisanal, it's unique. It's an artist piece of work.
So it can be really fun to do a coffee taste or a chocolate tasting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brandon! Something happens inside us when we get inspired to change ourselves, change our nutrition, our fitness. But we really do need to visualize to see and feel how we want to be. And for that, we need a plan.
No, you need a plan.
I want you
we
to
need
say,
a plan.
We need a plan.
You said we
need a
so
plan.
I don't know.
Brandon Coates is the author of the 30-Day Challenge to a Healthier, Happier, Stronger You. Let Brandon into your lives for just 30 days. It'll be epic, I can promise you. Because for some of you, maybe it is time to bust out of what you are. It's the 30-Day Challenge to a Healthier, Happier, Stronger You. Available direct at BrandonCoates.ca. And go behind the scenes with Brendan for each and every episode of the Gut Gang Podcast. That's available everywhere you get your podcasts. Brandon! I think this podcast is going to be fun, pretty fun, and different than the other podcasts.
Yeah. And Gabrielle's done that around the world. And through her shop in Nova Scotia, she's learned this.
Yeah. Right.
Whose this is, not which one do I like, but where did this come from?
So if you were to compare your chocolate to other, what do you call them? What are the high quality chocolate companies or brands? The artisan chocolate, right?
Well, right now here in Costa Rica, we have Brit, who is also a coffee company, and they're doing some fine but larger produced chocolate.
Right.
There are quite a few Mama Cacao out of Manuel Antonio. There's Macaw chocolate out of just north of Jaco. There are many.
There's lots.
But again, they're very small quantities.
Right.
So if you have to pay $14, you're lucky you get one. Is kind of the mindset
because
you need to have.
There's just not a lot.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about cacao. The healing properties. You as a practitioner, how you incorporate it into your modalities and how you incorporate it with your clients.
Right.
Because it's just so fascinating. It's not surface level.
Right.
And for anyone that's even been to a cacao ceremony, let's say in Canada, because there's a lot of facilitators that are doing it, and I think it's wonderful. It really, these ceremonies are beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's still surface level,
right,
in contrast to what I just experienced at your farm.
Exactly.
And what everyone else did.
Yeah.
So let's talk about let's do that. Talk about a conventional ceremony, your ceremonies, and then the healing properties of cacao.
Sure. Well, the ceremonies, there's no wrong way to do a cacao ceremony. If you show up, Mama Cacao is going to do what Mama Cacao does, right? The spirit of cacao. But there's an honoring. I do a lot of my work in ceremony. All of my healing work is done in ceremony, in gratitude. So I can serve a cup of cacao to everyone, and we can listen to some beautiful music, and we can probably even do an amazing meditation, and maybe I even play my drum, right? And it would be a beautiful ceremony, and you'd walk away going, oh, I feel like the medicine's really working for me, and I feel so much love. The difference from that and the people who come here, we are completely surrounded by Mama Cacao. And as you said, just getting up the road, if you can get to her, she takes you into her womb, right? And you are birthed into the experience of the vibration, and you can't then separate. I want
to pause on that really quick. Totally off topic, but not really. Anyone that perhaps does not have a relationship with a mom, maybe anyone that has perhaps abandonment issues or anything like that, are you saying that there's a level of embracing and motherness that they can feel with this?
Absolutely. Between the chocolate and Mother Earth, I mean, everybody you all felt it when
Now,
you walked in here, right?
I'm also going to say that I don't know if I'm going to coin it,
Okay.
but I think that I'm going to label you as grandmother. Maybe, I don't know if you want to take grandmother cacao,
Sure.
but
Absolutely.
you really have this presence. Now, I don't have any more grandmas. They've all passed away.
Uh-huh.
And so you really embody
I love it.
that grandmother essence.
I'll take that.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And
The wisdom of the grandmothers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real.
And I think that every single person that steps foot on this farm,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that they're going to be in agreement to some form or another.
Thank you.
You'll probably display all sorts of different traits that people need,
Right.
which is really interesting. You have this ability to really help so many people at so many different ways.
Yeah, meet them right where they are.
Yeah.
Right? And what do you need? What do you need from the land? What do you need from Mama Cacao? What do you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
In service. We're all here in service to, my role, I feel, with Mama Cacao is to see everyone's potential more than they see it. So in my healing work, I feel like I'm what would it be? I'm the one who holds their potential, right? I see their potential.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see it. My students that come to a body talk class, or somebody here comes here for a leadership training with Cacao, I see the potential of where they can go with whatever it is we're studying and
Mm-hmm.
working with. And they might be filled with fear and doubt and confusion and wounding and mother wounds and all of these things. So rather than bring my energy to them, let me tell you how it is, I'm like, come on, I see you. Let's go. Come up here with me, right? So, and I feel that way with this land as well. I'm the one that sees the potential of what can change here, how we can change. It was Mama Cacao who called in this retreat center. I was perfectly fine with my dog sitting here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Having
Yeah.
my beautiful little mountain
Sure.
oasis,
Yeah.
right? And she was like, it's time to bring the people here now.
You said beautifully that you could inject onto whomever it is that's here, that's looking for help and support,
Mm-hmm.
but instead you invite them
Mm-hmm.
and recognize from where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, we all want to be loved and appreciated for who we are.
Yes.
And it's very difficult for us to let that guard down,
Right.
so that we can be
Mhm.
authentic with who we are.
Right.
And that is very healing and
Yes.
can be healing. So you've really created this environment and this ecosystem and this home to allow people to really discover who they are or rediscover who they are, or just
Exactly.
truly authentically be themselves
Mm-hmm.
and finally feel that vulnerability, because when you're vulnerable, that's when you can get strong.
Right. Right.
So how I came here as not only a student, but a teacher to collaborate and co-create.
Uh-huh.
But you've got all of these amazing additional toys and things to do,
Yes.
right? So we got to do meditation.
Right.
We got to do a farm tour.
Right.
We got to do an actual, in-depth cacao ceremony with
In the trees.
in the trees, in the jungle, with even I'm going to label how do I pronounce it again?
Shaman.
No,
Oh, Flory.
Flory. I'm going to call it. I remember I said she is now a sage of cacao. She's an elder.
Yes.
And she's
Third generation cacao farmer.
Right.
It's in her blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's not red, it's cacao.
Yeah. So I got to do my first ever real authentic, and it was my first one.
Yeah,
First
I
cacao
love that.
ceremony.
I love that.
Then we got to do this immersive sound bathing,
Right.
which is just a whole different experience altogether.
Yeah.
And then we're doing this, co-creating and all that. And then we just did this amazing, you guided us with this eye contact
Right.
partner experience / exercise.
Right. Exactly.
How cool
Soul
is that?
talk.
Yeah. And you're really like a spiritual drug dealer.
I love that. Her grandmother cacao, but she's a spiritual drug dealer.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're offering all of these things.
Right.
And now, maybe it's a challenge that, it's all amazing here in Costa Rica.
Right.
But how can we bring some of these modalities back to, the mainland, or just, to a regular city life?
Right. Well, learning them, practicing them, incorporating them, go to where you're drawn and don't feel like you have to learn it all. Where would you like to plug in? Do you want to come spend 3 days with me and learn the cacao leadership so you can take that home to your family and friends, or your yoga studio, or your spa?
Is Mother Cacao exclusive to Costa Rica? Or if you bring her back, does she work her magic in different ceremonies as a facilitator?
Oh, yeah. I've trained many facilitators in my leadership program that are all over the world. There was a fantastic cacao ceremony by one of my students in Prague last month.
Wow.
And I mean, some of the reviews that she got, she sent to me, and she goes, I wouldn't have this if I didn't come travel and learn from you.
You also teach how to host and guide ceremonial cacao ceremonies.
Not in a right or wrong way. I share what it is I do.
Right.
And they can, there's an element of the sound healing, the consumption of the cacao, the biological changes when you consume it. I'm trained in shamanism from Native American modality.
Right.
So I bring that in. But the number one thing is what you already picked up, is the connection to Mama Cacao and the trees. And I ask my students to go and meditate and pray with the grandmothers. I'm going like this because they're over there. And get permission to be an ambassador of their medicine. Culturally, the Mayan tradition gets very upset at all these gringos out here doing cacao ceremony. Sure. And for me, how I got past that was to ask Mama Cacao, can I do this? Can I be an ambassador? And what I heard from her was, we need love on the planet right now. Yes, absolutely. Teach people with my medicine how to drop in their hearts and be love.
Prior to you, I've interviewed a couple other individuals here, and they too are practicing sort of not mainstream modalities.
Right.
Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine.
Right.
And they also had a little bit of a boundary, I suppose, or resistance with themselves, because they just didn't feel worthy, or like, how could a white person offer these modalities?
Right.
But they all said the same thing that you just said, like, there's an element of love and curiosity, and they kind of ask permission, and they're doing it.
Right. And I have had students who sit in meditation with Grandmother Cacao out there and get a no, but really just not now. Because the plant spirit can see your blockages. And if you haven't done your inner work and aren't authentic when you're sitting and holding circle for 5, 10, 20 people, the cacao knows it, right? And you have to have done your work. So this particular student that comes to mind right now had a mother wound that she was putting off, went to Mama Cacao, asked for permission, and what she got was, as soon as you heal that wound, you can be out in the world sharing this.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I feel as though that there is a level of, let's call them teachers or guides, that aren't quite doing it authentically.
Right. They haven't walked the walk.
Yeah.
They get it.
Yep.
Mentally,
yep.
But they haven't actually experienced what it takes to say the authenticity.
And so you just said, like, they have to do the work. What does that work look like?
Looking at our consciousness, looking at our thought patterns, our belief systems, our judgments, our criticisms of others, our projections that we're putting out into the world, that obviously come back to us in many, many ways. So an example I often use is, I don't see a lot of crime and murders in my world, because I own the fact that if somebody was hurting my daughters, I would kill them. I have the potential to be that I see and criticize, right? I have the potential to be that horrific thing out there.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I own that, I don't have to see it in my world anymore. It doesn't exist. So the work I had to get to see that and own it and bless it and not be afraid of it, it just went away. It just neutralizes.
Yeah.
Right? And so I don't sit in judgment of murderers. I don't no longer sit in judgment or defensiveness around, pedophiles.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have an issue with child trafficking and sex abuse? Damn straight.
Sure.
Big time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't sit in judgment of that, right? Because I've done the work that doesn't allow me to sit in judgment. And that's not easy work, right? I mean, that's not an easy process. You have to be real honest with yourself.
Reflective awareness.
Yeah.
My mentor, Dr. DeMartini, says that there's thousands and thousands of traits,
right?
And we all own all of them,
right?
In just different ways,
right?
So, but yeah, it does.
But we're trained to only look at those traits that make us look pretty,
sure,
and nice.
Yep.
And I mean, it starts with the conditioning at a very young age, where little boys aren't supposed to be angry, or they're going to be called a bully, or they're going to be, if you're too angry, they're going to take you out of the social network, right?
Right.
And little girls, in order to be pretty, you can't be angry, right? So anger is nothing more than a motivator to get us from point A to point B.
Say that again.
Anger is nothing more than the motivation we need to get from eating bonbons on the couch to getting up and doing something.
Right.
Right? It's only that, a motivation. There's nothing wrong with anger.
And it's the lack of that. It's the inactivity or the non-motion in between those 2 points that could be causing disease and stagnance and all sorts of stuff.
All kinds of stuff. Or that anger can go pathological. That anger can turn into rage, and then that becomes an adrenaline rush that people get addicted to, right? So they have to become rageaholics, right? Or the opposite pathology is to go to the other end where nothing bothers you.
Right.
You're just kind of like, okay, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So in Body Talk, we talk a lot about all emotions serve our greater good. Even fear working with our intuition to say, hey, you probably should get back on the curb. You're about to get hit by a bus, right? And that's the fear intuition saying, I just need to move right now, right? But fear can also turn into paranoia. And it can also be fearless, and you're taking too many risks out there in the world. Right? So the emotional aspect of all of it, we have to look at all of the emotions and embrace them and love them, and they are who we are. And to bring them to that neutrality. Look at our belief systems, right? I mean, enlightenment to me is taking all the masks of beliefs off. All the identities, right? The I am a mom. Okay, that's an identity. It's not who I am.
Right.
I am a mom as an identity. I'm a Body Talk instructor as an identity, right? You are the gut whisperer as an identity.
Sure.
Is that truly who you are?
No, there's so much more.
When I was soul gazing with you this morning, you are way more than the gut whisperer.
Right.
Right? And so that's important. And we tend to get righteous in our belief systems, and they become not only our mask, but our armor.
Yes.
Right?
That's a great segue. The armor.
Mm-hmm.
We all have this armor guarding us. Mm-hmm. You've got this space that enables people to relinquish, even temporarily, that armor.
Right.
Talk about your space, talk about the farm, talk about this home, and what its biggest purpose, because you said you want to have a retreat center, right? But like, what can people expect?
Oh, it depends on what they're here for. But from the land and from the space, I think they can expect a different energy than what they're used to on many different levels. First, we don't have a cell tower for 40 miles, right? So there's a certain level of digital detox. You all went through it this morning when we lost electricity. You couldn't check your emails. Yeah. That's an issue. Right? That's a frequency that a lot of people aren't willing to set aside. They want to know what the password is to the email. Oftentimes, just the electricity will say, no, you're shut off. Right? I say, people laugh at me. I say this land is a magical vortex of fairy dust and pushing you to your greatest good. It'll take you to your knees and it'll lift you up, right? And it's the vibration. It all comes back. We were talking about it with Ed and the sound, right? It's all a vibration. Mm-hmm. And even the cicadas and the birds and the macaws and the rooster and all of these things are resetting our nervous system, right? Just being in nature, we are resetting our nervous system. The songs of the birds do that.
Now I could literally put a mic outside just for the sake of doing it, and the audio would do no justice.
Right.
But my goodness, is there ever a constant hum of nature going on around here?
Constantly putting you in parasympathetic. There's somebody, I just saw something recently, I didn't even have time to read it, but it's about how the song of the birds resets our parasympathetic, and that's why they start at 4 a.m. Before we wake up, before we come into full consciousness, they're singing to us.
Wow.
Yeah, and what a great way to wake up.
I heard something that, same concept with waking up, but I heard that birds singing in the morning almost like stimulate the plant's ability to almost accept or like the photosynthesis process.
Yeah.
It's just, but it really is just a waking up.
Right.
It's so,
even for the plants.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right? All sentient life on the planet gets, the song sings its heart space into it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the plants wake up, the bees, we have our little Mariola bees that as soon as those little yellow flowers out there by the pool open up, out come the bees.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a symbiosis that if you take the time to look and watch and observe, it's pretty fascinating what this world does while we're busy running around in our cars and drinking our lattes and all of that.
So why would anyone want to come here then? Why would
for that?
Well, hold on. Vacation, obviously, but like, why would anyone want to? Why here? Because there's a lot of retreat places, right? What are they going to get here? Now, obviously, we've had an amazing conversation, and I hope that they're going to get a lot of understanding of what they're going to get.
Right.
But like, why is it needed rather than, let's say, a 7-day all-inclusive vacation to a resort? Why would it serve humanity, or why would it serve someone better to do something like a retreat and come here?
I believe it's because they will be met right where they are and transformed to the level they're willing to transform to, and be met by nature and loving people and loving hands. And I'm sure they can get that somewhere else. Yep. I know the power of Mama Cacao. I know the power of this nature. I know the power of this tribe, if you will, this village that I live in. I'm the only gringa here. They're all related. They've been here generations. There's a magic to that.
Right.
There's a peace to that. There is pure Pura Vida, not trendy Pura Vida with that. And I don't want somebody to come here on a vacation. I want somebody that wants to show up here, spend some time here, and leave transformed. And I don't really care at what level or how, and they don't even have to share that with me. But that will happen if they're willing to show up and do the road.
I was talking to Eva earlier, and I said that coming here, I don't want to, it shouldn't be discouraging, but it's a little bit of work. It's spiritual work.
Yep.
So if you want to do some spiritual work, this is the best place.
Exactly. Without a lot of, if any, dogma. It's just a beingness.
Right.
I mean, I don't think I've spoken to any of you guys about a spiritual practice, or we haven't done a meditation.
No.
Right? We did go on a journey, but it's like there is no...
Everything's just really just came so authentically and through nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you want to truly experience Pura Vida in Costa Rica, the country is beautiful. There's a lot of wonderful places, but Divina Vida is also one of those top wonderful places too.
Yeah. Way off the beaten path.
Yeah. And I will quote Nick one more time. Bad roads bring good people.
Yes.
And so
the best.
This is the road's not that great. Just as you said, the last kilometer.
Yeah.
Last kilometer and a half. It's not great,
Yeah.
but it's worth it.
But it's brought amazing people. This week we have
Yeah.
just a fantastic group.
Mm-hmm. So I'm very thankful that you have allowed me to come to your home
Thank you.
and be part of the Living Light team
Yeah.
collaboration.
Yes.
I'll end it with this, unless you've got some more important messages.
I'm grateful that you said yes
Oh, thank you.
to the invitation.
Thank you. What's your mission and what's your vision?
My mission is to continue being the best stewardess of this land that I can be and listen to her needs. So my vision is that more and more people will come and be healed, transformed, grow, shift consciousness because they spent time on this earth, on this land.
Right.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of highly educated or super successful individuals have a lot of catchphrases, or really powerful phrases. And when we were doing grace at dinner, you said 2 words: prayers answered. And that hit so hard because it was just such a powerful statement.
Yeah.
So do you want to maybe just expand on that really quick?
As I said, when I first moved here, I didn't really know what I was going to be doing. I thought it was going to be a retreat center, and then I went off on the herbs. But I can remember 28 years ago having the idea of people coming here and doing what we did at the table, sharing our hearts, sharing our love, sharing our like-mindedness. Nobody was arguing. We all come from a different, path in life. And that was my prayer. Bring the diversity that knows how to listen to people and be willing to grow and learn from them, right? And you were the perfect example. We're morphing out of a raw vegan culinary institute into way more than that. Not that we're throwing that out. That would be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. But what we're creating is so much more. And when you said, I eat meat, is that going to be okay? I'm like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
We meet you right where you are.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
we love you right where you are. Right?
One more point. It's an observation. Key point is family, and you're really creating family, and we're building family.
Yes.
And so for someone that maybe doesn't have family, or that someone that has a very small group circle of friends, come by yourself. Come here completely on your own, and I guarantee you're going to become part of a family.
Yes.
And you're going to get some new friends.
Yes. I thought it was beautiful yesterday with Tony with the drumming circle, that when we were making the drums, they kept saying, familia, familia.
Yes.
Listen, familia, right?
Right.
In this country, if you are open-hearted and centered in your heart, your family, period. There's no question. There's no credentials. There's no qualifying.
Right.
If your heart is open, and everybody's was, he just instantly said, familia, you're my family.
That's right. We got to do a drum making ceremony, which was also the most authentic thing.
Is that your drum? Whose drum is that?
That's my drum.
Show him your
Oh,
drum.
hold on. Yeah. How about I show my war wounds first? I've got one blister here, one blister there, one here.
This is part
and
of the
then
work
one
you
there.
do.
I know, because I'm so passionate.
Yeah.
So now I can, thank you. Now I can say that I've put my blood, sweat, and tears literally into
the drum.
This drum. And it's just so cool because I've been incorporating drumming in my ceremonies, and I have a couple drums from South Africa because it's part of my family, but now I can...
You have your drum. Show
Yeah.
him the back. Show it. Because that's the artistry. That's what makes it unique.
I did
it's
this.
his.
I learned how to do this.
Yeah.
Pretty
it's
cool.
beautiful.
Yeah, pretty cool. So thank you once again
Thank you.
for being that vessel that you said that you are, and being the what's that? Not the flight attendant, but the stewardess of the land.
The stewardess of the land.
And ultimately, thank you for being my grandmother
Aww.
and the grandmother for everyone around here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sweetheart.
All right, Gut Gang Podcast, we are done for this episode. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. And honestly, I'm going to put the link right here in the bio, but I would say reward your curiosity and get yourself to Costa Rica and get yourself to Divina Vita. Find her website. I'll put it right there. Find some courses, some retreats that are happening. And you got to come here because I guarantee you will come back a completely different person. Gut Whisperer out. Okay, that wraps up this episode of the Gut Gang podcast. Thanks so much for being a part of the Gut Gang community. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and even leave a comment. Your feedback fuels our growth. And also, here's something special. If you want more exclusive content, be sure to become part of the private Gut Gang members-only community, where you get to see behind-the-scenes bonus segments in my cold plunge and the sauna with each of the podcast guests. That's right. Part of the podcast series is having the guests hang out with me for the whole day at my place, biohacking, taking cold plunges, going in the sauna, even a coffee tasting where we hook up all the mics and the cameras and we shoot the entire experience. You definitely don't want to miss out on this action. So I'll see you over there. Gut Whisperer out.